Delhi has become a gas chamber, a recurring problem for India's capital city. This comes at a time when the World Climate Summit is underway in Azerbaijan. COP29 Baku, that is underway, and there are a lot of conversations that are taking place when it comes to climate change, climate finance, but what about air pollution? Unfortunately, the crisis extends beyond India. India is urging its neighbors, including Pakistan and Bangladesh, to work together to tackle the Indo-Gangetic Airshed, one of the most polluted areas in the world. The idea is clear. Air pollution knows no borders, and we must join forces for a sustainable future. Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. The battle for cleaner air and a healthier future has a new battleground. It's a shared challenge across entire regions. Delhi's toxic air quality is making headlines, but it is not just about one city. At COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan, the call for regional cooperation is growing louder. India Today Global is on the ground at COP29, where global leaders discuss innovative solutions for South Asia's air crisis. Ashutosh Mishra here with this report.
India is also amongst one country that's breathing in toxic air, water is polluted, and so is the food. And that perhaps now becomes a top agenda for the climate activists here in Baku, Azerbaijan at the COP29 Summit. I'm Ashutosh Mishra. I'm here in Baku, Azerbaijan for this 29 COP Summit. Right behind me, you see these Nigerian activists raising the voice and the voice against use of fossil fuels. While there is an agenda and there is a demand by the developing countries that the developed nations must come forward for the climate financing, there is also a demand to reduce the carbon emission and of course the fossil fuel. These activists singing the song, "Don't burn the planet, climate justice now." And this is so urgency that we already see the smaller islands now. There is an existential crisis for the developing countries already facing huge crisis, including our national capital where we see huge smog killing the people. And that's the condition perhaps in every tier 2, tier 3 city. And that's exactly why there's a demand to take urgent action for the climate financing for a better planet. The Delhi is forced to breathe in a toxic air, and the situation is similar in the neighboring country, Pakistan, particularly the provinces like Punjab, Multan, and several other severely affected with this similar situation. Jahangir Anwar, the Secretary from Punjab government, joining me here at Baku COP29 Summit, where the deliberation Pakistan is doing, Punjab is doing on the smog-like situation. What are the steps you have taken to prevent these kinds of situations in your province?
First of all, yes, we are suffering with smog, unprecedented smog. We have made world record. Lahore has crossed 1,000 AQI multiple times during the last 4-6 weeks. And we are actually, all of us are grappling in the dark. We do not know this surge, why it happened this year, because last year it was just 435. And this year it is unprecedented, uncontrolled. We actually started off early this time.
Basically, it's an air emergency.
Yes, we have actually implemented so many actions. We actually shut down the industry. We have shut down schools. We have shut down businesses, markets.
Even virtual lockdown.
Virtually lockdown, yes. And we are actually, we never had this thing in our mind that we are going to face this kind of disaster in November and December. But as you have just asked, that we started off in the month of March, and we demolished 822 brick kilns across Punjab. We have demolished over 200 industries emitting smoke this year. And we have impounded vehicles, clamped down vehicles, and we imposed 400 million rupees fine over the smoke emitting vehicles.
And there is a stubble burning as the biggest crisis in Pakistan, Punjab.
Exactly. And let me be fair with you. It's not an allegation. People actually take it as an allegation to India. No. We say that on the both sides of the divide, our farmers both are having the same mindset. Our agri practices are the same. Our cropping pattern is the same. So on this part of the world, Pakistan, this year we have harvested 6.6 million acres of rice. And on your side, there were 3 million acres of land was cultivated for the rice. So both sides actually, and we, why do we say that? The satellite images of the weather sites and other, international sites, they show the thermal scanning, thermal pictures showing red both sides. And there is a wind phenomena, and we don't have to be contested, because when wind comes from east to west, it affects us, and when it goes back west to east, Delhi get affected, even your midland Punjab get
Have you
affected.
taken action against farmers for stubble burning?
Yes, we have taken, we have registered 400 plus FIRs against cases against the farmers. We have arrested them, over 400 farmers arrested. We have imposed fines. We actually initially we engaged them in for the awareness, but somehow we couldn't really derive those results. But government this time, Chief Minister gave them superseder. It's a kind of a machine. It cost like for 1.2 million, and government has actually provided them 60% subsidy. We didn't burden the poor farmer. We paid 60% of the cost, and rest of the amount is to be paid by the farmer. And this year we are going to provide them 4,000 more superseder. We are going to set up biorefineries in those areas. So we are actually taking steps to tame this menace of smog, because we know that both sides of the farmers, they will keep on burning this, because this is their their bread and butter.
The border divides two countries, sir, but somehow we are united by the situation or the phenomenon of smog. What do you think could be a solution to bring the situation to normal both the sides?
My chief minister, she made an announcement like 3-4 weeks back, and she intended to take it very seriously, and she is very seriously. She has already initiated a process of climate diplomacy. We have already written a letter to our foreign office, because we want to go through the normal diplomatic channel. She intends to hold a regional conference on climate in Lahore, maybe next month or maybe in the month of January. She also intends to visit India, and she would also be inviting the Indian counterpart and the policymakers to Pakistan. So we all should sit together and devise some strategies, because we can't live like this.
What we are saying, a woman is ruling in Punjab in Pakistan. A woman is now as chief minister of Delhi. So, of course, the two chief ministers alone talking cannot resolve it, because that's a diplomatic situation, requires intervention at the federal level.
No, because this is normal procedure in any confederation or federation. You have to follow the the procedures. But the biggest thing which I really want to point it out is that she means it. She's very serious. This is my 26th year in service. I've never come across such a serious government who's taking environment that seriously, and she has allocated resources, funds, everything. She wants to get rid of this smog, because we have shut down our industry. We have shut down our brick-kilns. We have actually started demolishing those industries.
And when you shut down industries, when you shut down operation, the entire country affected, stalled, and that perhaps calls for an emergency measures. At this scale, what we are seeing, both countries, people from both the sides are affected of this air pollution.
Air pollution crisis has escalated across South Asia, with Punjab in India and the Punjab in Pakistan emerging as epicenters of the smog emergency. Delhi's toxic air quality continues to make headlines, but the situation in Pakistan's provinces, including the Punjab, Peshawar and Multan, is equally dire, with AQI levels surpassing a hazardous 2000. At COP29 in Baku, the call for regional cooperation is only growing louder. Ashutosh, you have Harjeet Singh with you. There's a massive problem when it comes to the two Punjabs, India and Pakistan. We've seen the blame game that has taken place between the two sides. How do you see the two sides really working on the problem when it comes to air pollution and tackling it?
Well, and that's a very critical issue, particularly for Delhi, NCR, India's capital, and perhaps we see the similar situation across northern India. But sir, you have been talking about it, deliberating about these situations. What we see in Delhi, the NCR, similar situation within certain provinces of Pakistan. There is a talk about carbon emission, the PM 2.5, PM 10, the efforts we have seen in past to, odd even formula. Then we see GRAP 3, GRAP 4 implemented. But at large, how do you see the situation developing, and the efforts that we talk about our authorities are taking? Is that adequate?
in terms of the measures that they are taking?
Well, Ashutosh, absolutely not. And that's why we face this problem every season and we are not able to resolve it. The challenge is we wake up only during this time and then we sleep almost throughout the year. So I think it's important for us to have a more systemic approach to this issue than only looking at the season. So what we need is having a more seasonal and crisis-oriented plan where we look at all these sources, which we very well know. Look at what GRAP is doing right now is clamping down on the vehicular pollution, or we know which industries are not using cleaner fuels. So we have that information. Why are we not taking steps to regulate those industries which need to adopt cleaner fuels, move away from fossil fuels? And there are some small businesses which will need incentive and technological support, which we need to do much more proactively. Public transport, yes, we do see mobility now increasing, but clearly it has not been enough. That's why we have not been able to bring vehicular pollution down, and the public transport system is not good enough for middle class and upper middle class, and that's why we are not able to attract them. And I always remind that I come from Delhi NCR and I don't see bus transit system really working very well. We also need to look at how we can increase the green spaces, and we really don't have, except some parts of Delhi. If you look at the larger NCR, we have not really looked at that part. Agriculture problem still remains. So we have not looked at it from a systemic point of view. We are not waking up, talk about it for a few weeks, and then go back to the same routine. And my biggest concern is,
when we talk about at a global level, we talk about climate balancing. For similar situation, if we see the adaptation of the method for the agriculture, there is a talk about fund these farmers, financially help them, and that could be one solution when they would, get away with this stubble burning.
Yeah.
It has literally become a menace. You think the authorities and the government are doing enough towards that?
I don't think so, because the problem is much deeper. It's not about just blaming farmers, because the kind of crops we have now adopted, they leave very little time between two crops to actually change. And even if you provide them incentive, they're still finding it much easier to burn it than harvest it. So there is a problem with the crop. What we need to do is to really look at relook at the crop pattern and go for crop diversification. And some of these crops are not good for climate also in terms of their water use. So we need a complete overhaul of our system and thinking where these agricultural states have really gone in terms of only looking at production and not looking at the environmental impact. And I would like to connect the conversation that we are having here at the climate conference and what we are facing in India. Primarily, we have not put environment at the core of our development. That's the challenge. You look at rich countries who are continuing to burn fossil fuels. Look at our development, where we are only defining so-called development as means more private vehicles and more water guzzling crops. So environmental issues have been sidelined, and that's the core of the problem. We need to prioritize that. So these issues are connected, even if the factors currently in India and Pakistan are very local, but the mindset of the development model remains the same, and that's what we need to tackle in our countries and of course at the global level.
But when it comes to blame game, we know that India, Pakistan have their own share of problems. We've seen in the recent past air pollution also becoming a major issue between the two countries. Dr. Asif Tufail, you're representing Pakistan at COP29. What is it that the two countries can really do to tackle the challenge rather than continue with the blame game that the two countries have done for every other issue when it comes to diplomacy and all subjects to do with diplomacy?
Today, this COP29 that provided an opportunity to discuss different areas regarding this mutual cooperation. First of all, I will like to just apprise about the efforts being undertaken in the government of Punjab. We have taken this smog and climate problem as a whole of the government approach. It's not only that one department like environment or forest. Rather, we have focused in all the departments, and you will be surprised to know that the current financial year government of Punjab has allocated about 100 billion rupee, Pakistani rupee, for different climate-focused projects. Similarly, the stubble burning, that is the very serious issue as discussed previously. On our part of the Punjab, we are providing substituted options to the farmers. We are although taking very strict action against stubble burning people who are spoiling the environment, but alternate, the option is the superseders The government is providing about 10 billion rupee to the farmers who are interested to buy super seeders, though, so they can quickly reclaim their lands instead of burning the stocks over there.
Right. I'll come back to you, Dr. Tufail. If I could go to Linda Kalcher. Linda, how much do you see governments across the world, states across the world really focus on environment and show the political will to really tackle the issue of climate change? There are leaders who actually do not believe in the concerns or the idea of climate change itself, but here in the Indian subcontinent, that's not the case, and yet we see everyone in Delhi NCR, the capital region of India, reeling under a massive air pollution crisis and living almost in a gas chamber.
I mean, the simple answer is not enough, and that's still the case. So I think the more we can actually here in Baku agree on a new global goal on climate finance, the more we can provide the reassurance that the transition is possible and that the finance will be there. And then it can go really concrete down to the local level. If we change our energy systems to cleaner energy, if we change our transport systems to cleaner transport, that already reduces two major sources for pollution. But it is the first day in the second week, so ministers arrived today, so I hope that there will be much more progress in the next days.
Right. Ashutosh, final word from you and Harjeet. Both of you are in Baku. You're looking at and you're absorbing what is happening in terms of the conversations in Baku. What are the big takeaways for you and for Harjeet when it comes to this climate summit, particularly to do with air pollution?
Largely, Geeta, we see this time around, it's on the negotiation for the climate financing. And when it comes to climate financing, there will be also talk about the carbon credit trading. And of course, when it comes to air pollution, then the biggest contributor is the carbon emissions. How these countries, the developing countries, the global south is going to reduce their carbon emission. And in that terms, what help will come from the global now? So that seems to be one of the biggest issues that is being deliberated here at the COP Summit. But sir, at your perspective, at your point of view, what are the biggest takeaways you think so far is being deliberated here at the COP29?
So from developing countries side, they have put out their issues very clearly. Number one, we have to agree on the quantum, and that has to be in trillions of dollars. India put out the figure of $1 trillion annually, Arab states at 1.1 and Africa 1.3, and now the entire group of developing countries have adopted $1.3 trillion annually as the target. The second thing, which is major, is about the quality of finance. We want grants and not loans, because we know how loans are further exacerbating the debt crisis. And the third issue is also how do we include the loss and damage issue. As we know, we got a new fund, and this particular target of new climate finance goal should look at mitigation, which is emission reduction, adaptation, but also dealing with loss and damage, as people are already suffering and they need support to recover from climate impacts.
But the NDCs that are being announced, for example, the Brazil, the way to say they're gonna reduce the carbon emission by 67% in the next 7-8 years. So they are being too ambitious, or many other countries setting up NDCs are setting, projecting, very high emissions. But do they have a blueprint, or is it only the verbal orientation, or just some prediction they have made?
Well, I'm sure they have worked on the details, but the key aspect there is these are all conditional, or most part of these pledges are conditional. And that's what the UNEP emissions gap report and immediately after NDC synthesis report that came out in the last few weeks is specified, that we need to look at the conditional aspect, which means these plans are going to be implemented only if finance and technology are going to be provided. And even with that, we are looking at a target of going beyond 3-degree temperature rise, which is huge. At 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming, look at the kind of impacts we are facing. And if we go beyond 3 with these targets, it's going to be devastating for everybody. So we need to raise the ambition now and also provide money so that those conditional targets can be implemented by developing countries.
And due to impact from Geeta, I would just like to add, because the representatives of the Marshall Island are here and I met them, that an island with a population of 25,000, the severe crisis, that there is even existential crisis because the sea level is rising. and these 25,000 people are at risk. And there are several such small islands during the deliberation of the second and third day. They even discussed the climate, the impact of the climate change. They will be the biggest victim if the urgent measures are not taken.
So that's a very important conversation that we've had. It's not just about air pollution, it's also about what Ashutosh just said, and we'll discuss that in our future episodes, that has to do with the drowning islands and what is it that the world is doing about such an emergency situation. On that note, Ashutosh Mishra, Harjeet Singh, Dr. Asif Tufail and Linda Kalcher, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today Global on Statecraft. For the entire interaction that I've had with these gentlemen and with Linda Kalcher, please log on to India Today Global YouTube channel and you'll catch the entire interaction on our channel.